All right, welcome back to MaxBet Podcast, our special mini series we have with the International Gaming Institute called WTF with IGI, our favorite initialisms together. And we're here with Kaz. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
Can you tell us your title again?
Yeah, so I'm the Director of Research at the International Gaming Institute. So I manage everything throughout the research pipeline. So, conceptualization, fundraising, executing the research, disseminating it. And we have a small team of graduate students and postdocs that I manage.
Okay. And another part of your work there is the Air Hub, correct?
Yeah.
And that's mostly centered around AI.
Correct, yeah. So we founded this initiative, it was little under a year now. So it was May of last year we founded it. So Air Hub stands for the AI Research Hub. I was really interested in AI and machine learning during my PhD, and that kind of extended beyond my PhD. Connected with a person that I'd cited quite frequently in my PhD dissertation. We connected at ICE in London a few years ago, and we kind of got talking at a bar at one of the side events, and
as one does, yes.
Had similar interests, and continued talking about ways to work with each other, and then had a few ideas, but landed on this kind of research lab. No one really in academia was really focusing on what AI meant for gambling. I think there was appetite also for that kind of intelligence from an industry perspective or regulatory perspective. So that was the idea, create this kind of collaborative research hub that could be the engine for knowledge and how AI is impacting the sector.
And I feel like AI is one of everybody's favorite buzzwords right now. I mean, if you go to any of these conferences, there's at least 4 panels with some kind of AI in the title.
Yeah.
What are you guys doing that's different from that? What really sets you guys apart with?
I'd say, it aligned with what an academic research institute should do. We're doing it from a data-driven research perspective. So, we're not really doing anything without hard evidence behind it. Almost everything in there is got some kind of systematic methodological process that's gone behind it to be okay, this is what we want to talk about, but what does the actual data say? Where can we find evidence of kind of to guide commentary on whatever topic we might be talking about? Try to look at all the different key facets of how AI is impacting the sector. So not only industry, how regulators are thinking about it, what's the academic research looking like, what's conference discourse looking like, what's the startup activity kind of looking like. So we're looking at all of these different aspects of it as well.
Okay. And you mentioned the report, but basically you're putting together, and you're going to talk about today, the biggest findings from your research to date, right? That's really what this report is. It went out, April?
Week of April 6th.
Okay,
yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
So with this report, you guys, do you have any bombshell findings that you came across, or any big moments where you were this is massive?
Yeah.
Everyone should know this.
Yeah, I think so. There's a few. We did a big survey of different companies in the sector.
And what do you mean by companies in the sector, AI sector or gaming sector?
Oh yeah, so the gaming sector. So
Okay.
so we did this. We wanted to do this survey because we wanted to kind of gauge what companies in the gambling industry, what their kind of overall AI posture looks like. So we wanted to understand, land-based casinos, online casinos, suppliers payments, analytics firms, all of these different major gambling companies, and also the support services that support the industry. How are they adopting the use of AI? What are the challenges they see? Are they getting ROI? All of these kinds of questions we wanted to look at. So we did all of these companies, and a real strength of the report, I'd say, is that we had this kind of one response per organization design. So we reached out to these companies individually, and we're we're doing this survey. You need to have this response reflect your entire organization. So we were speaking to CEOs, CTOs, or even some companies have an internal working group. So they collectively made sure the response was reflective of the entire organization. So these are really kind of good quality survey data that we have. So you asked for findings, and I'm talking about methods.
No, that's good. It's good to know the methods, so we understand you're not just asking one person.
Yeah.
So they had to thoroughly pretty much survey everyone in their organization, or I guess like
Correct.
the
Or like,
leads.
maybe some companies have or only a handful have a chief AI officer, which was a
Okay.
finding in itself. We didn't actually see many companies with like a chief AI officer. We're starting to see that in other sectors, right? But gaming, it doesn't look that common at the moment. It usually falls under the purview of like a CTO
Yeah.
or maybe a chief analytics officer, that kind of thing. But we're not seeing this emergence of the chief AI officer, which is an interesting thing. Maybe we'll see
Yeah.
that appear in the next couple of years. I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe we'll provide motivation.
Yeah, I was about to say,
Yeah.
maybe this is it.
Yeah.
What are some things that you found across like suppliers that you thought, did you segment it that way too? Of like,
Yeah.
oh, suppliers are all doing collectively this compared to what these
Yeah, yeah.
ones.
So that was one of the key kind of cuts we looked at was like operators versus suppliers. We also looked at kind of online versus land because we thought that might be interesting as well.
Yeah.
And I think actually the key differentiator was kind of online versus land. And I'd say land-based operators appear to be a bit further behind than the other sectors. So even land-based suppliers even seem kind of more at the frontier with online operators and online suppliers. So it's the land-based operators that appear to be a little bit behind, and that's not surprising, right? They probably got the biggest challenge ahead of them.
Right.
They operate very diverse businesses. Like we look at the strip, and they've got restaurants, they've got other amenities, spas. They've got thousands of hotel rooms to manage.
Yeah.
So it's probably no wonder that it's a bit more of a challenge. They've got legacy systems, that kind of thing. So that was an interesting finding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So on the scale, it would probably be iGaming supplier were the most
Correct.
like the
Yeah.
they have the chief AI officer most
Yeah,
likely.
some of those have like chief AI officer. What we also saw with those companies was is that they were purposeful in terms of having a strategy. So we kind of asked like, oh, do you have an AI strategy? And how developed is that strategy? Is it something that is just a document, or is it actively guiding your initiatives? So companies that kind of had a clearer strategy in place appeared to do better on some of the other like data points we looked at.
Yeah.
So leadership, strategy seems important. Infrastructure seems important as well. A lot of the suppliers seem to have a bit more of a mature infrastructure. So like, maybe cloud, data warehouses, that kind of thing, that kind of support what AI needs. Because AI, you need data, so
Yeah.
that made sense as well. The generative AI, the tools that Anthropic, Google, OpenAI are releasing, what I think is that this is going to kind of lead to some kind of democratization of analytics. So what I mean by that is, especially for like land-based operators and things, like we've usually seen kind of a centralized analytics team or analysts taking on that role. And what I see AI doing is like kind of empowering each individual department and the personnel within that department to perform analytics themselves. Like you can go and use like Claude Cowork, Claude Code, without any kind of analytics or coding knowledge. But those department personnel know their business unit. Like the director of housekeeping, the director of food and beverage, those people know their business way better than anyone else. Even if you have the centralized analytics function, I think you could argue that those people really know their business. And if they could do the analysis, they would do it themselves. Well, I think AI is going to empower those people to do the analysis. And to answer your question about what's the better source of data, I think with these tools now, you can really ground them in actual company data. So it can be pulling from the direct sources of data and then grounding the outputs based on that data. So then it is a bit more objective and it's not like tuned to just the person or whatever.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
For sure. Because I think a lot of beginners' first questions would probably be like, oh, so I just need to start using chat as like my Google resource now instead of like, where do you even start? Like, what kind of program do you use? Do you use like a Claude? Do you pay for something? I know I heard like Python at one point. Or is it the programs themselves that they already have
Yeah.
that have that AI function? Like, Where is the AI coming from for these people?
Yeah, who was it? I was listening to a podcast, and it was last year, and I think it was like Sam Altman. He was describing how his different users used GPT, and he was like, the younger demographics use it more like an operating system, whereas like the older demographics use it more as like a Google search, which I found interesting. And at the time, wow, am I using it as an operating system? I don't even know what that means. And then, but then you look at it and it makes sense. Like, I feel like the real power of these tools is like, it's chatting with it and getting, oh, what's a good restaurant nearby, or help me draft this email. That's great. But if you start using it with your computer, like giving it access to folders, giving it access to data, using it in your enterprise, I think that's where the real power lies. And I think that's probably where companies are seeing real ROI when they do that.
And what kind of program are they using for that? Like, what's the most popular one that
I think
is out
Claude
there?
Code, I've heard. I mean, outside of gambling, Claude Code seems to be really popular, as well as Cursor.
Okay.
I started using Claude Code, late last year. They just released another kind of feature of it though called Co-work, which is really nice. It's a bit more like it's a bit more accessible. I'd say it's like Claude Code, but for like the business user. So Claude Code, you have to be maybe a bit more comfortable with code, and it's more tailored for software engineers, people who are like building applications or websites and dashboards, that kind of thing.
Okay.
Whereas Claude Co-work is like, I used it. I mean, you can use it for anything. It's really great. You can give it access to documents, and it directly works with those documents. So say if you had like an Excel file that you needed cleaning up, or if you had the use case I see all the time on like YouTube videos is like, oh, you've got a bunch of screenshots and you want your screenshots like organized.
I have so many screenshots.
Yeah, like it's good.
Thousands. Okay.
Literally, like you go on YouTube and that's like there's like hundreds of videos on like, oh yeah, Claude Co-work, it can like clean up your screenshots.
Oh my!
Like, wow,
this
is that the best thing ever?
Like, okay. Wow. This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I think apparently like a huge majority of people are putting like very sensitive documents into ChatGPT, which is like public information. Like it's not safe at all. But I don't. Why do they do that? Like, I mean, I've heard of people do, like health, like upload health documents, like and analyze this, which I think is great. But wouldn't you? I think you probably want that on a much more private.
It's probably a literacy thing, right? I mean, people just don't know.
Yeah.
Like, when email first came out, I'm sure people did a bunch of stupid stuff with email.
I think people still.
Yeah. And like we didn't know like the risks, and we didn't know what a phishing email was or a scam email. But now we kind of know. It's like we've learned it over time. So I think the same thing's going to happen with generative AI. I guess the difference is it's like quite fast in terms of like the pace of change. And talking about literacy, going back to the report, that's something we looked at actually. So we also did a survey of regulators. So we asked regulators about their perceptions of AI. Do they think it needs to be regulated more stringently? But we also conducted an AI literacy test with those regulators. So do they know the foundations of like machine learning? Do they know what a prompt is? Do they know about what you should and should not put into it and that kind of thing? And we had a very kind of like what you'd expect normal distribution of responses. So some people scored really low, most people scored kind of in the middle, but only a few regulators really scored like at the high end of that. So it begs the question, right? If we don't have this literacy among the public, among the people who need to regulate the technology, like what's progress going to look like?
Yeah, that's very interesting because how would you suggest that they do regulate AI in gaming?
In gambling. Yeah, this is something we looked at actually with a research project. My shout out to my graduate assistant, Cesar Lozoya Martinez. He's like leading the project, and it's funded by Clarion Gaming, which I don't think is the name of them anymore. I think they have a new name.
Is it?
I think it's like World Gaming or something.
Okay, because isn't Clarion like the G2E Ice?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think they're called World Gaming now, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, they have a research institute, and we got funding through them to study what kind of governance looks like for the gambling sector. And I think there's a couple of routes. One is self-regulation, which is what you might call responsible AI or AI governance. So the companies themselves can be putting their best foot forward in terms of, are we doing the right things in terms of data privacy? Are we doing the right things in terms of assuring our models aren't biased, ensuring that they're fair, ensuring that we're transparent about how we're using AI? So the industry itself can do some stuff for governance. And then regulators, I think, have two options, right? One is more of an outcomes-based approach. So you could say that current gambling regulations already cover AI. So we've got regulations about, I don't know, consumer protection, marketing. Those are kind of outcome-focused regulations. So AI kind of just falls into them.
I see.
Or you could say, actually, AI is so different, we actually need specific regulations for AI.
I feel like you probably do, right? I feel like the first is maybe AI is not going anywhere, so it feels like it's only going to get more advanced at this point. But
I think, yeah, I tend to think we might start to see more gambling specific AI regulation. And we worked with Vixia on this section of the report, and they actually did a scan of their kind of regulatory intelligence database to see what is the current situation in terms of what gambling regulators say about AI. We saw a lot in terms of like regulators saying or recommending operators should use customer data for consumer protection. So and with that using kind of AI and machine learning to do that. We are starting to see, I think, like one or two regulators specifically say stuff like you can't use AI to generate hyper addictive content. Like I think Massachusetts have a clause that says like do not use AI to generate, features or products that are highly addictive.
okay.
So maybe that's a signal that we'll start to see more specific call outs.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
I feel like you could probably just put in like, hey, give me the exact model for this competitor's game. Couldn't you do that? Or like, give me the exact math, like analyze this.
Yeah.
What does that look like? But I know there's like, obviously, if you do come out with a game, we've learned this recently, if you do come out with a game that's identical to that, you'll get in trouble. But I feel like there's so much copy paste out there, it would probably just exacerbate that in some capacity.
It's a really good point, right? Like, did you see all the stuff with like Disney and Warner Brothers about like, you could generate, I don't know, Beauty and the Beast going on holiday in South America. I don't know.
Okay.
You basically generate whatever you want with these characters, and since then, like Disney signed an exclusive deal with OpenAI, so now OpenAI is the only provider that's allowed to generate that content. But like, it's interesting. So, because I was interested in that, and I was like, okay, what happens if I prompt, one of the tools to generate a new slot theme that's, I think I said like, what animal did I give it? I gave it some animal, and I was like, oh, can you create it like buffalo? Because buffalo's really important, really popular.
Yes.
I think I said like elephant or something.
Yeah.
And it basically created like an elephant version of buffalo, and it looked exactly the same as buffalo. And I was like, well, buffalo has to be in the training data because it looked exactly the same.
Yeah.
And like, do Aristocrat know that? I don't know that buffalo's been in the training data. I don't know.
Right. Oh, so then does that come up with like
IP?
Yeah, protecting your own IP. Like, is the Aristocrat calling up ChatGPT like, okay, we want an exclusivity deal?
Yeah.
Or like you can't share. I don't know. Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, I think like the generative AI with game design is interesting because like it's gonna get cheaper and cheaper to produce games and content. So what then does that mean for like the market dynamics? Will we just see that move like in-house maybe? Because you have lots of these game studios now, but if it's really easy for like an operator to just design their own games, do they need to purchase them now?
That's a good question. Other than the hardware, but I'm sure someone else could supply the hardware and you just put your games in. But then, there's probably that. I feel like we might be a long way out from that because then you still have all the regulatory framework to go through.
There's
but that doesn't say, it's not impossible. Okay, so we talked a lot about suppliers and a little bit about iGaming. What were some findings you had about operators?
Yeah, I mean, so online operators appear to be, kind of at the forefront. They really they have ambitions. They want to use AI. They're using it for they're using generative AI mainly a lot of the time.
Can you tell us what that is in like one sentence?
Yeah, so like generative AI is like ChatGPT is a
Okay.
form of generative AI. So that's AI that's actually generating new content. So whether that's image generation, text generation, audio, visual generation, that's generative AI.
Okay.
Which is like speaking, when people talk about AI now, that's probably what they're referring to. But AI also encompass machine learning, which has been around for years, and is just more kind of like predictive analytics. Using data to like forecast what's going to happen next week and that kind of thing.
Okay.
So generative AI adoption is looking quite high. We're seeing less adoption of what was the buzzword of last year, which was agentic AI.
Yeah.
We haven't really seen that emerge as a big use case in gaming yet. We're seeing it at the frontier companies, so like online operators appear to be maybe adopting agentic frameworks a little bit more.
And those are like your FanDuel, BetMGM, those kind of operators.
I'm assuming those operate. Well, I know which operators took part in the survey, but it was confidential, so I can't.
Oh yeah,
I can't
but
share
it's
the names,
those
but
kinds of,
those kinds of companies.
yeah.
FanDuel,
Yep.
BetMGM,
Yeah.
big ones in Europe.
Caesar's Interchange. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Use cases were really, really, really broad actually, but the key areas we saw use cases were technology and security.
Mm-hmm.
So leveraging it for things like cybersecurity and data privacy, that kind of thing. We also see major use cases for product development and innovation. So more on the supplier side there, which makes sense. Suppliers are there to bring new products to market, bring new games to market, so they're using it more for the product innovation. And then online operators, you're seeing it used for like player acquisition, customer relationship management, also things like AML, fraud, player protection, that kind of thing. So not really anything groundbreakingly surprising, I'd say. I think the biggest takeaway was I think I'd expect more agentic AI use cases, and we really saw that as, I think, only like maybe a third or 1/5 of the respondents were really indicating that they have like really adopted agentic AI, which was surprising to me.
Okay.
Yeah. And then also code generation, like lots of companies using it for like code.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
helping write code, generating code.
I used to write a lot of code for my MySpace page
Oh,
back
yeah.
in the day.
Yeah.
I didn't retain any of that or put it to use in any kind of monetizable skill, which is unfortunate. But the AI would have been very helpful back then.
Yeah, imagine like just how...
I would have had the best page. Yeah.
Yeah.
It would have been great.
I really liked MySpace. My favorite thing about MySpace was the featured song.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. What was your featured song?
Oh man, I think I remember my wife's gonna love me for this. I had Tom Petty, American Girl, when I first, because I had MySpace like just before I moved to the States.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I met my wife and I...
Okay, so
I
you
put
were
that
like
song-
manifesting ahead of time via MySpace. Great. Well, too bad they didn't ever revive that. I think they tried, but it didn't work out.
Yeah.
Maybe with new code, though, who knows? Are there any other like lasting big takeaways you have from your report?
Did we speak about the governance gap? I don't know if we did a little bit. I think, well, I think we did at the start. So I think the big takeaway is that we see, the industry has high hopes at AI, but we are seeing kind of this governance gap. So while we're seeing uptake of the technology, people want to be adopting it, we're not seeing a similar kind of interest in governance of the technology, which I think is quite important. Gambling is arguably, one of these controversial sin industries. So you would expect something like AI governance to be kind of top of the list in terms of things to prioritize. Certainly in finance and healthcare, we're seeing like a major kind of commitment to responsible AI. Some finance companies have responsible AI departments or chief responsible AI officer, like that, those kind of titles.
Wow. Okay.
We're not seeing that in gaming yet. And I'd say, if we do see more kind of misuse of the technology or like concerns about it, I'd say the industry probably needs to think about responsible AI a bit more before the regulators like step in and start
Doing it for them. Yeah.
you know what I'm saying. So I think, but above all of this, right, is an AI governance landscape that is really just a mess. Like we have the EU AI Act, which is kind of strict, but now they started to step back because we're like, oh, sorry, actually, maybe some of this stuff is a bit much. Then we have the US that doesn't, at a federal level, doesn't really want to do anything because they want the companies to do whatever the F they want. And then we have some state legislators that are actually like, oh, wait a second, we want to protect our state. And, you know, Tennessee, California with like Hollywood and things and performance artists, they want to protect those people. So they're doing like state legislation, state level legislation. And then China's doing like, well, they're trying to make sure that they're on par with the US. So you've got this like really muddled, broader AI governance landscape.
Yeah.
So it makes it hard for, I think, to govern it or to decide what to do at a sector level if the broader picture is so murky.
Yeah. And then you have the literacy aspect of it as well, of people just not fully understanding what is happening. I am one of them, so I get it. And you'll be speaking more about this at the conference, correct?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so the IGI Gambling and Risk-Taking Conference happening May 26th to the 28th. We're going to actually have a State of AI track on the second day, so on May 27th, where we're basically going to spend the whole day going through each section of the report. And we have 4 sections of the report, so the first one is what we've kind of spoken about, this industry survey. So we'll be going over that and then maybe doing a panel with maybe some of the people who filled out the survey would sit on the panel, we'll see. Second section would be on the regulatory stuff. So maybe do something with Vixio there. Third section is called Research and Advancements. We haven't really talked about it much, but we looked at like what's going on in academic research. We collected like all of the AI related patents that are being filed by gambling companies to kind of see who's filing like new patents around AI.
Oh,
so that
interesting.
So that was interesting.
Okay.
We also looked at conferences. So we picked up session information from all of the major conferences like Next, ICE, G2E, to look to see, is AI being spoken about more over the past 5 years, and what exactly is being spoken about. So interesting stuff there as well. So yeah, those 3 sections, and we actually had a dedicated section on responsible AI which we decided before we did any of this. We were like, we think responsible AI is important. We think this should be a focus. And then doing the research, it kind of emerged as an interesting thing where it didn't seem that there was like a connection between adopting the technology and also like adopting it responsibly. So, yeah.
Okay, so you're going through all of those 4 sections of the report at the conference.
Yeah.
Very fascinating. So if you're a supplier, a regulator, an operator, pretty much anyone in game, there's probably going to be something for you.
Yeah, that's what honestly,
track,
that's why we wrote the report for everyone in gaming. Like whether you're an operator, a supplier, a journalist, a researcher, a regulator, a lawmaker, lawyer, whatever. I think everyone will probably find it of interest who's working in gaming. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you're interested, click the link in the caption. Thanks so much for joining us today. Might need to do a part 2, not sure, but pretty sure. This has been part 3 of our mini-series, WTF with IGI, and we'll catch you next time.